Here we are. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Selfcare is My Job. Here I am. I'm Samantha Long, host of the show, and I have an awesome friend that I'm welcoming to have a conversation with today. This is Morgan Perry, and she's the founder of Vino Vinyasa. Yes, exactly what you're thinking. Wine and yoga could not be a better pair. So, hi, welcome. Thanks
Hello.
for having time.
Thank you for having me. This is so exciting. Congratulations on your show.
Wonderful. Oh, thank you. I'm having so much fun. Seriously. Like, I cannot wait to just continue. And I mean, I get to be like, guys, I'm going downstairs and I'm just like going to chat with my friend. Like, that's what I've created for myself right now. It's perfect. So, I want to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit, not only about Vino Vinyasa, but like, how did you get here? Like, what, in a nutshell, like, how did this happen? Was it yoga or wine first? Like, because I didn't even get to ask you these questions. And we can talk about a little bit too about how we know each other, but go ahead and let us know about you.
Yeah. So I'm Morgan Perry, founder of Vino Vinyasa, which has been around now for going on 4 years, which is crazy. But basically my background was originally in wine. So definitely wine first.
Wine first.
And I worked at a PR agency, PR, events, social media, but basically like a creative marketing agency in New York City for 10 years. And I was VP when I left. And most of the time that I worked there, I worked on the wine accounts. I worked in some spirits and a few other things here and there, but wine was the thing that spoke to me. I went down to Chile on a press trip and I fell in love with it. Once I was kind of in the place, seeing the vineyards and meeting the winemakers, I was like, oh, I get it now. And so, yeah, I came back to New York City and started taking wine classes to learn more. I was marketing it, but I didn't know that much outside of what they kind of told me to say. So I did that for a while. And then when I quit my job, I did not know what I wanted to do, but I knew that it was kind of my time there was over. And my boss at the time was very encouraging. And she was like, don't take a job right away, do something for yourself. So I did my yoga teacher training. And that was something that I had been wanting to do in my practice. No intention of becoming a yoga teacher. Just doing it. A lot of
people do that. A lot of people just want to deepen their practice, and that's a beautiful thing, but never know where it takes you.
Yeah. And while I did an immersive experience down in the Dominican Republic because I didn't have a job anymore. And it was really, it sounds very cliche to say that my yoga teacher training changed my life, but my yoga teacher training literally changed my life because I'm down in the DR. I'm with 15 of my peers that are also doing yoga teacher training. And if you're in the DR doing it for 3 weeks, you're pretty much in a life-changing situation. Like most people there didn't have a 9 to 5, there was one guy that was still working, but the rest of us were sort of not working, figuring out our paths. And those people supported me in everything that I'm now doing, which is working for myself, starting Vino Vinyasa. So when we were down there, doing our training, as you've done too, as a yoga teacher, at the end of yoga teacher training, everyone gets to teach a class. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to mix mine up a little bit. So I was like, oh, we'll just talk about wine and then I'll lead them through a wine tasting because, I kind of knew enough about wine. So I did it. And everyone in the training is like, what was that, Morgan? Oh my gosh, you just busted out all this knowledge about wine. And then after Shavasana, you led us through this like very zen tasting, very mindful tasting. And they were like, you need to do this. And I was like, no, that's crazy. Like, I'm not good. And they convinced me.
That's what you always say. No, it's crazy. But you know what? That's your gift. That's your thing. That's when you know.
Yep. So that's how it started. And those people also, while I was down there, I actually got a job offer. And it was more money than I was making before, but it was kind of like, it was doing wine marketing, but in-house, but it was in New Jersey and I didn't really want to reverse commute from Brooklyn. And there were kind of all these things about it. It was
what's wrong with Jersey? Well, come on.
Nothing wrong with Jersey. I just didn't want to reverse commute. And they were not cool with working from home because I was like, oh, I can work from home. I mean, most of the wine events are in the city. I live in Brooklyn, I'll just come in for meetings. And it was a very old school company. And
Yeah.
I was going to be like the youth coming in, you know, but I didn't have any peers. And I just felt kind of like, it was the first job offer I got. And while I was down there, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't have a job. It's so hard to turn down a job with money. And everyone down there was like, Morgan, you know, we've been hearing you for 3 weeks. You don't want to work for someone else. You want to work for yourself. And I was like, but do I? And they're like, yes, you do. Like, so that journey really changed everything. And Vino Vinyasa was born, and I started doing wine marketing on my own. So I actually consult, and I have a couple of different clients that I work with doing public relation and events in the wine space. And then I have Vino Vinyasa.
Wow. I love this, first of all. Like, that is a story that I didn't even know. I did. Yes, exactly. I was going to say, what's in your glass? Looks like we're samesies.
I have some, I have 2 reds that I'm kind of switching back and forth between. One is Côte d'Aron and one is Chateauneuf du Pape. And this is from one of our classes that we did recently. So I am kind of comparing them.
Oh, I was literally like, we'll get to that because I was going to have you drop some knowledge on us as well, for sure. So cheers. Yes, my love.
Happy holidays.
Yes, happy holidays. I have a Lodi Red Zinfandel called Small Hours. He's hiding over here. I love his label. He's got a little sad face.
Oh, that's cool.
It makes me happy. He's supposed to be like something Sinatra-esque or whatever. I'm like, I love that wine. Anyway, that being said, yes, so me and Morgan know each other, side note, because I've worked with her on occasion at Vino Vinyasa because same, you know, in the same vein, it's like, not only did I always have this in my trajectory of going through the yoga teacher training, and that was always going to happen at one point or another. I really got kind of inspired to make it happen after I had my second child. But at the same time, this whole time, from when I first had my kids, I was dabbling in the wine world too and worked for a company doing wine tastings. And once you get that itch and you want to learn more, right? You want to learn more about something because you feel called to it. So like, I love that kind of concept of the fact that this is crazy. You know, you also get that same feeling. Well, this is crazy. You know, I always compare that to you know, our stories again aligning, because when I left the corporate world, it was around the same time that I got into wine, and which sounds like a perfect segue, right? Like I leave and then I'm just going to go into something that I actually do enjoy doing, you know, and that passion was kind of building inside of me. But you're also at the same time, right? There's like that voice that's like, well, who am I? Who am I to just say, oh, I'm going to go do wine as my job? And then let alone, there's also this concept of like, not only who am I to go with that direction and like do my own thing, but also who am I to enjoy my job? Like, you know, so there's like this concept of like, you have to struggle or something, right? Or like, you know, life and your job has to be hard and your boss has to suck. And like, this is how it works. Right. But then, because that's like, you know, sort of couched as this is the American way or whatever it might be. Right. And then it's like, okay, but enter the lifestyle of an entrepreneur, not even the lifestyle, like the journey of an entrepreneur is kind of like, oh, like stepping through all of those and like, you know, stepping away, I should say, from all of that mentality of like, it has to be something that like, I have to go do this job every day. No, what if it can be like something that lights you up and then can also be your passion, not only your passion, but your career. Like, so I think it's so awesome that like yoga teacher training, which makes total sense, right? Like it would bring you to a place where you are ready to embrace that, right? Because yeah, this is what yoga can do for somebody, right? So it was wine first. That's good to know. So yeah, tell us a little bit about what is going on right now. Like you were saying, about what you're tasting. So in your class, like give me a snapshot of like one of your very recent classes right now. Like what does that look like?
Yeah. So, well, first of all, Samantha's taught several classes for us at City Vineyard, City Winery, and
so fun.
I miss it. And oh, man, 2020, man. But I mean, I cannot wait to work with you again, have more events. It's been such a joy getting to know you, and all of our teachers are so amazing. I mean, I want to have a Vino Vinyasa teacher retreat and just get us all together. We have teachers here in Austin, and we get together from time to time, and we play like this blind tasting card game that I have. And it's so fun to get everyone together. And I can't wait to do that in New York with our teachers there. And it's going to be great. But so our classes in person and our classes on Zoom are not that different. But our classes in person that Samantha would teach would basically be at a really cool venue like City Vineyard on the rooftop in New York City. And we'd have a yoga class in about 45 minutes. And while we're flowing through the class, we talk about wine. So if we're talking about these wines that I have today, we're going to say, okay, we're talking about Rhone Valley. Okay, there's Northern Rhone and Southern Rhone. We're going to focus on the South, and we're going to talk about these grapes, what are grown there, blah, blah, blah. A lot of Grenache, Syrah, Mourvedre, and go through kind of like a little bit about the region, a little bit about the grapes. And we're doing that while we do yoga. So it sounds crazy, but when you see it in action and when you do it, it's actually nice because we give you all the yoga cues on one side. You get into your warrior. We can tell you all the alignment. And then on the second side, you already know all that. And then we give you a little wine fact. And so you're holding the pose for 2 or 3 breaths, but you're not bored. You're learning. And then when we're flowing through our vinyasas, a lot of times we're kind of giving you a little chat. So you'll get about 20 facts about wine while we're doing the class. So it's kind of fun and interesting. And if you've ever taken a yoga class that has like a theme, like a chakra or something, and they kind of use that as a theme throughout class, that was really my inspiration. So our theme is wine. And then at the end, we have our shavasana, just like any other yoga class. And then in the in-person classes, so that's the same on Zoom as well. In our in-person classes, the yoga teacher, so Samantha or myself, a yoga teacher that is somehow trained in wine, comfortable enough to lead a wine tasting and to drop knowledge and answer basic questions. We don't need to be a sommelier, but we do want people that are able to answer questions and that are comfortable talking about wine. So we lead you through a tasting, and our tastings are pretty simple, right? And we did this last night in our Zoom, but basically the 5 S's. So C, and you kind of notice the color and all that. Swirl, which my glass is a little full, sorry. The swirl. And then smell. So you're noticing those lovely smells and aromas. And then sip and savor. So those are the 5 S's that we go through.
Cheers.
And we just kind of help people identify how to taste wine. So when you're drinking a red, we talk about tannins and what it does in your mouth. You're drinking a white or a rosé or a sparkling, a lot of times that can really show off that acidity. We talk about acidity. We talk about body. So we're just kind of talking about the basics of wine tasting so that when you leave our class, you have the knowledge and you have some vocabulary and you have some tools that you can take with you out into the world. So you can go to a wine bar, you can go to a restaurant, and you can say, hey, I had this wine. I learned that I actually like really grippy tannins, or I learned that I like high acid whites. And then the som or the person,
or like, do you have anything from this region? Like,
exactly. I learned about a new region in my recent Vino Vinyasa class. Do you have other wines from the region? So that's sort of what we do. When 2020, COVID hit in March, shut down all events, canceled everything in all 3 markets. We're in New York, Austin, and LA, canceled everything, and like literally just curled up into a ball and said, what the hell am I doing? I have an events business and it's COVID. But I am because I'm a wine marketer too, and I'm constantly online. I'm constantly engaging on Instagram. If you're, talking to Vino Vinyasa on Instagram, it's me. I'm just like online. I'm paying attention to what's happening, and I'm starting to see everyone in the wine world is just pivoting. All these influencers are doing digital tastings and Zoom events and this and that. And so like the first thing I did was I emailed all my yoga teachers, all of you ladies, and because we have a team in all 3 markets. And I said, hey ladies, there's about 8 of us total now. I was like, who wants to lead a sip and stretch on Instagram Live? And a few people were like, sure, I'll do it. I'm not paying. I'm just like,
well, you're not making anything. So how can anybody expect, you know what I mean? Like
let's
something
just
like that. That's promotion, and maintaining your brand, and it's important even in the midst of a damn pandemic.
And it's just keeping your brand in front of people and kind of top of mind, and like connecting with your audience when you can't connect in person. Because what we've come up with and what has happened in Vino Vinyasa is we have developed a community. It's a community of people that love yoga and wine, and they want it to be accessible. I mean, our yoga is not crazy. We're not doing anything super hard. It's very beginner friendly, and we make the wine part really accessible too. So I wanted to just connect with the community. But after a while, I realized that Instagram Live wasn't actually the best platform for us, because people are in and out. It was kind of like someone's in for a minute, then they leave. And I was like, they're not really getting an experience. So I had the idea to use Zoom. We started our first Zoom class, I think it was late April. And we had a crazy, I think one of our first classes had like 50 people or something.
Wow.
I mean, like
awesome.
our largest Zoom class had 79 people in like the height of COVID, which is crazy. Our average now is around 25 to 30. Just because, I think people get a little bit of screen fatigue and like, things like that. But I will say that as soon as we switched over to Zoom and I started offering like, this is the time, you sign up, you have your little camera on, like there's no in and out, it's not IG Live. We're offering you an experience, a class, and we're talking about a specific wine. So I was able to say, this is a wine, here's a link to where you can buy it. We're all going to have the same wine. You don't have to buy the wine to join. It's free to join. So buying the wine is kind of your cost to entry.
Yeah.
And then we have the winemaker or the founder or a brand ambassador or someone on from the brand with me, just like we're doing now, to have this like really engaging Q&A. So instead of me talking to a screen and, talking to people, but like most people are kind of like muted, and they're, how it is during a wine tasting, like people are like, oh, I don't want to say the wrong thing, so we're not getting like a ton of people. It's like people are like learning. And so instead of that, I was like, why don't we have a conversation, a two-way, and then everyone can chime in the chat with questions, comments, and we keep it really engaging. Like, oh, what are you guys tasting? What are you guys smelling? What do you guys want to eat and drink with this? And so that's what we do in Zoom. So that's what makes it different. And what's been super cool is that we've had winemakers from New Zealand, Australia, Italy, France. We had a lady from France, actually from this winery where I'm talking about today. She was on, it was 1 a.m. in France when she started the Zoom with us. And it was when she got off. So she was like a total trooper being on late at night with us. Wow. And it's been so awesome because I have been able to connect with all these winemakers and wine brands, and our consumer audience that used to only be in New York, LA, and Austin has grown. So now we have people from Philly and Arizona and Maryland and Chicago and Nashville and places that I've never been able to have Vino Vinyasa events. So we are now global,
Yep. That's the thing, is that there are hidden opportunities in this quote mess that we're in right now that, you just have to find and then kind of like embrace it as an opportunity to learn, I think. Like even like, before I forget, because you were talking, just reminding me how wonderful these events are in person, and I just had a Facebook memory pop up not too long ago of a bubbly class that I taught at City Vineyard. And it was so much fun. And so just seeing that picture pop up and being like, my goodness, like, it was a little sad for a minute, but at the same time, I was like, wow, like just gratitude for like having that opportunity to like, it was a big group. And I remember like, I put together like a play, just kind of, again, accentuating what an in-person event like this, what it can be. Like I put together even a playlist for the yoga class that was mostly French, mostly in French. And, and I think, and people were like totally into it. And that's what I wanted to say. Like, I even learned, like, even having been in the wine space for, I don't know, 3 or 4 years before we met, just in like a short amount of time working with you and going and tasting different things that are outside of the realm I was in, I learned more. So I'm thinking to myself, how wonderful, like, somebody like me who's somewhat educated in the realm, and then thinking how it would be for the person coming to the event and just getting these little snippets of knowledge that they can take, because wine could be really intimidating. People want to get into it so bad, but like there's just a lot, like I always just tell people, location, 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 like real estate. Like that's all you have to, you like something, just remember where it's from.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like if you want to just break it down, make it simple for yourself, right? Is there any little tips like that you like, just, like even if it's just one thing that you always say to people with wine, like if you want to learn more, or if you're choosing, like what do you tell people?
Well, I think my biggest thing, going back to self-care, wellness, and all that, I mean, because, it is yoga and I try to take care of my body, but I love wine.
Yeah.
So it's all about balance.
So we can talk about that.
But one of the things that I kind of do, I don't want to use the word preach, but I say it a lot in my classes is, don't buy that $9.99 grocery store wine. Now you can get, and I don't know, do they sell wine at the grocery store in New Jersey? Because I know they don't in New York City.
No, it depends some, but not often.
Yeah. So in Texas, where I now live, I live in Austin now, and they sell wine in the grocery store. And there's like several grocery stores. Obviously, Whole Foods is an example of a higher end grocery store, and the Whole Foods wine selection here is amazing.
Yes.
But support local, small businesses. So I would rather buy wine at a wine shop that I know and trust. But there's other grocery stores, like big chain grocery stores, and the wine there, like I have actually gone in to buy wine for a boat that I was going on, knowing that I would probably have one glass. I went in to buy this wine and I left. I was like, I can't even bring anything to this boat.
You're like, I can't buy.
And I know that makes me sound snobby, but it's actually not that I was being snobby. It's that like there are, I don't even know the number. It's like 65, 75, 85, a lot of ingredients that you are allowed legally to put in wine that's not wine. So in the US, we don't have to say, nowhere has to say on the labels, but we are, we use pesticides. We put stuff in our meat and our wines, and, we want to have the most grapes and the biggest and this and that. And so when people say, oh, why am I hungover? What am I doing? My thing is like, well, what are you drinking? Because if you were drinking something from a family-owned winery where their kids are running around in these vines and their hands are on everything that's happening, even if they're buying grapes, a lot of times they're still managing how those grapes are farmed. And if it's a small, in Europe, a lot of times you're going to have less of those pesticides and stuff like that. So in the US, it's just like those cheap big box brands. I'm sorry, but the cupcake and all of that, it's not wine, it's mass produced. There's lots of sugar. They're doing stuff to not have it. They're basically making it to where our palates will like it. Our American palates, we love sugar, and they're putting who knows what in there, food coloring, like some sort of sweet syrup, and God knows what else, because they don't have to put it on the label. So my thing is always, I try to work with brands that I know about, I trust. Even if they're a little bit of a bigger brand, at least I know that they are making their wine sustainably. You don't have to be organic. That's really hard to get certified. It's expensive, but be sustainable.
That label is
expensive. Land, and don't put a bunch of crap in your wine. So my biggest thing that I tell people is like, if it's under $10, you have to be careful. And if it's a big,
it's not about the price. Like, I don't care what you spend on your wine. Just like, have an idea what's in it.
There's definitely a correlation between like, we're mass producing, so we're able to sell it for like this much versus you can get some amazing wines. The wine we had last night on our class was like a $12 or $13 bottle from New Zealand, Sauvignon Blanc from New Zealand. Someone found it for $6.99. And that's not saying it's a bad wine. It's under $10, but like do your research. And I think the main thing I tell people is, sorry, that was a really long-winded answer, but it's important. The main thing I tell people, and it goes back to self-care, is find a wine store you trust that's, someone that is curating, or find a person that works at the wine store that you find very knowledgeable and say, hey, I want something from a family, a smaller family owned vineyard. I want to buy small, I don't want like a big mass produced thing. I want something that's like, doesn't have to be organic, but like, sustainably farmed, small production. A word you can use is minimal intervention winemaking. So it doesn't have to be a natural wine, because those can also taste a little funky, but you can say minimal intervention, which basically means like they're doing the least that they can, or that they have. They're only intervening if they have to. They're kind of letting nature take its course. And there's so many amazing wines out there in that like 10 to 15, 10 to 20 price range. You can still get a great value. But when people talk about like not feeling good and things like that, I'm always like, don't buy that cupcake, sorry, but that's
and that's the thing, like many people's palates have become accustomed to that, is that, that's what's even worse, I feel, is that you buy all that mass produced wine and then your palate eventually becomes accustomed to all of those additional flavors and adjustments and interventions that come into play. So then you're like, well, I don't like this and that and that. It's like, okay, well, like start fresh, because your palate I don't want to say your palate can be trained, but you just trained it to like one thing. So give yourself,
drinking a mocha
frappuccino to learn and to taste. Yeah.
You're drinking a mocha frappuccino every day for a year, and then someone
hands you just have a black coffee. Yeah, totally. And we're accustomed to sugar in this country, 100%. I always find that, like, it's funny, I'm drinking a Lodi Zinfandel right now, California, not Lodi, New Jersey, Lodi, California.
I didn't even know Lodi, New Jersey was a thing.
Yeah, it's right here, actually. And people, cool. When I used to do wine tastings locally, Lodi, and I'm like, no,
not that Lodi.
Let's go back. Anyway, so yeah, and I generally don't love California wine, and the only reason, it's not because of, you can't generalize like that. Like every vineyard is going to do their own thing, every winemaker does their own thing. But I think the winemaking style, they'll leave those grapes on a little bit longer. They like that ripeness and that juiciness, and the sweetness does come from that. So when I drink a California wine, 9 times out of 10, it's way too fruity for me. It doesn't necessarily mean that there was those interventions. It could be. And it could be different grapes in there that you don't know what's in there, but just be mindful, just like anything else, or you come right back around, be mindful about what you're putting in your body. And I love that, because it comes right back around to like a very simple, not only a simple mindfulness practice that you can bring into your life, like just being aware of what you're putting into your body and how it makes you feel. So like you're talking about hangovers and stuff, and it's like, dude, it's actually quite simple. You're feeling a certain way 90% of the time, or if not more, it's because of what you're putting in your body. Yeah. So just be aware, not like, again, we're not judging ourselves. We're not, insert negative self-talk here. It's not a shame game. It's just like, start little by little to become aware of that, I think. Yeah. And I love that.
And like we've all done it, and we've all gone on the journey, and we're all still on the journey. We're on the journey. And like, college Morgan would eat, you don't even want to know what college Morgan would eat. But then, New York Morgan got like slightly more healthy from there. And then, still eating burritos at 2 a.m., but, having a salad. And then now I try to eat a salad every day so that I can have my carbs. I love carbs at night, right? But I'm buying organic when I can. Right. And, so it's like I'm buying organic food. I'm trying to nourish my body. So I'm not going to go and drink, a 6-pack of Coca-Cola. I'm not going to go, it's the same thing with that like $2 chuck that you're like, I'm not sure. I'm going to, like drink something that I know, at least I have an idea that, okay, this is a family owned. And it seems like a lot of work, but it's really not, because you can rely on other people. Like you can ask your som, and like, that's why having relationships, it seems scary to talk to people in the wine store, because wine can be intimidating, but that's why like we give you guys the tools, a couple words you can say, and you can just go in there and say, hey, I tried this Lodi wine and I really liked it. And I think what I liked about it was X, and they'll say, cool, well, I have a similar thing here. Why don't you try this, and you can say, okay, cool. I just want to, is that like a small producer? Like, I'm trying to buy small and like minimal intervention. And they'll say, Oh yeah, absolutely. You know, and that's it. Like it seems scary. You don't have to research I do not research every single wine I buy at all. I just kind of go to a local shop. I email them. I say, I love this. I love this. Surprise me. Put me together a case. Pro tip: if you buy a case at a time, you'll get a discount. And then you don't have
Yes.
to run out and buy wine every time you want a glass.
You're gonna drink it. Get the case. Like, get it. No, seriously. And it's true though. You know, it's making me think of one other thing to just insert here. Not only being mindful of the ingredients and what's going into your body, but like consumption and quantity as well. Like, so whenever it's funny because, you know, it's not that I still clearly love my wine, right? But and we talk about, you know, how you're sort of what you're intaking and everything changes over the years, right? So even if I go back to, you know, the beginning of motherhood, and it's funny because what do they do? I mean, women are marketed a brand of self-care, and especially moms, we're like marketed wine as self-care. Women in general too. But like, you know, so it's like not only do you have this retail therapy that's like thrown at you, like, and go get your hair did, go get your nails done, go get a massage, all that. And that's like marketed to you as self-care, but it's also go have a glass of wine. And we have to be careful because once you become mindful, you become in control of what you're putting in your body, not only not only the ingredients, but the quantity in your consumption. You know, wine should be something that you're partaking in. Any kind of alcohol consumption should be something you're partaking in on a celebratory or social, you know, kind of thing, and not necessarily to reach out for those like external factors to come in and numb you or like fix whatever's going on emotionally or spiritually or, you know, mentally. And especially, you know, coming back around to the period we're all living through collectively right now, where it's, you know, there's no one in the world who hasn't been affected mentally, you know, whose mental wellness hasn't been affected by this on one way or another, whose business hasn't been affected, whose relationships haven't been affected. Literally going through this all as one. And it's a slippery slope, right? Where you're kind of like, I need to take the edge off. And I talk about motherhood here only because, yeah, like at the end of the day, when you've been chasing around the kids all day, especially when you have small ones like I do, there is that moment absolutely where you're like, it's 5 o'clock. I can pour this now, you know, and it's Monday. Not that who gives a shit what day it is, but you know what I'm saying? Like you're just like looking forward to that. And it's not, again, it's not a shame game. It's like, just become mindful. Like you said, we're constantly on the journey. Like you just become mindful and aware of what you're doing and, you know, whatever's going on, and just use that knowledge going forward, not necessarily to say, oh, you know, I have a problem, or look at, you know, here I am doing this or whatever. It's just to become aware and mindful and learn from it. And, you know, bottom line, that's all we really need to do. But I love, you know, I'm bringing it back around to Vino Vinyasa because that is the perfect, like, it's like the epitome of like this social fun, you know, wellness event. It really is, because you have that social aspect too, where most people are coming with a friend or two or more, you know, and you're spending good time together. You're having that form of self-care on top of it. That's like that social self-care where you need to like uplift each other and inspire each other and just have good old fun and like have that, incorporate that. And it's so awesome that you've been able to pivot to do this virtually, which again, there are these opportunities to do so. A lot of people have businesses where you know, it's really, really hard to find that. And we were
People's businesses like aren't pivotable, you know?
Yes, there absolutely are. And it sucks, but like we have to find ways to like bring it online, because we also depend on this, you know, so you talk about Zoom, right? So that's one of the best ways to bring a group together virtually right now. That connectivity, that connection is what we're going to start, what the first thing that goes when you bring in social distancing. So like if there is this opportunity to bring something on Zoom or you know, whatever platform, and just be together, quote, right? Like we have to, it's better than nothing. It's better than nothing. We need that connection and like that sort of joyful togetherness, especially during the holiday season, right? Because it's going to get interesting in the next week or two, right? It's going to get fun. but we focus on the good, we focus on the opportunities, right, to be together. This has been awesome. Oh my God, I feel like we can talk for hours, I love this. And yeah, I asked you, I just want to see if there's anything else. So before I let you go, I just want to, like, for your own personal self-care, like, just like, what is a non-negotiable for you? Like, not whether it be daily, weekly,
Well, again, pivot.
Yeah.
I would say previously it was probably yoga. And then the pandemic hit and I was doing yoga at home. But then I got a puppy. And that
it's time.
Yeah, so it's pivoted again, and now it's our walks. I mean, we usually at night we do like a 45-minute to an hour walk. I mean, we walk throughout the day, but like we'll do like once around the block kind of thing. But now we have these like lovely evening strolls. It's like 45 minutes or an hour, and I used to kind of like try to be on my phone and like do things. And now it's like I've realized if I am, again, mindful and we're training on how to walk, right? And, for him, I know how to walk.
Yeah.
But, and if I'm mindful with him and if I'm with him the whole time and paying attention, and we have a great walk. If I get distracted, it's like, that's when shit hits the fan and he's like pulling
it's
and
a perfect example, right? Like he knows like that you're there with him and that you're present. Like it's so funny. Like how many conversations do I have with people that I'm comparing? We end up comparing children to kids, or children to dogs.
Yeah. I do that all the time. I'm like, well, I don't really understand what you mean because I don't have a kid, but I do have a puppy and I feel like it's kind of similar. And then it always is kind of similar. Yeah. And it's funny because I was hanging out with
it's not the same thing, but you can find,
you can relate.
Yes.
I was hanging out with my nephew who is, he turned 1 in August, and I went home for Thanksgiving to see him just in Houston. So not too far, and quarantined, took a COVID test, and then went home because it was very scary. And I was hanging out with this, baby or toddler, I guess now, is a little over 1. And there were so many similarities between him and my puppy. It was like so funny. I kept comparing.
I take literally zero offense. Like I know that there are some parents who are like,
it's not the same.
It's not, and it's totally not. And I know that, and you know that, so it's not like a thing. Yeah. And I swear I have an almost 2-year-old and I compare him to like a dog all the time because I'm always like, are you kidding me? Like there's literally drool on the floor. Like, so same, first of all, and there's just like, it's climbing, just climbing on shit, falling, like, it's like, I'm sorry, but you're an animal
on the floor, like grabbing.
You're an animal.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I totally get it. And I love that though. The fact that, I'm totally with you. And I would say, similar to my pivot with this whole situation, exactly. It used to be hot yoga at the studio, right? Yeah. Like, I mean, seriously, like I would know, like I had like a barometer internally for when I needed to like zoom to hot yoga, and it would just be like the cure. Like I would just sweat everything out, and I would just leave like 3 pounds lighter and just be like, oh, right. So, fast forward into COVID times where, I mean, we were saying this before, where for me, it really is that presence practice. And that comes from me trying to, it doesn't happen every day, but trying to cultivate a 10 to 15 minute period of quiet, like in this space that you see right here, because with the kids and everything, it's crazy. Like I think that this experience has actually made me realize that as a person, I do require that quiet. And it's funny because you know me, and like, our viewers right now, I talk, like I'm loud and like I go on and on, but at the same time, like my actual like subtle energy requires that quiet and stillness. So, and that's what I have to, that's my non-negotiable, right? Like I need that in order to just like, it's really for my mental wellness,
Yeah. And
the physical practice of yoga is wonderful.
That kind of gives you that energy that you can then give to your kids and your husband and put back out in the world. But I'm
Totally.
an extrovert like you, and that's part of the reason why I live alone, because, I like the idea. Well, having a roommate sometimes is nice. Like having people around is nice. I feed off of people. And that's why our classes are so, I leave and I feel like a high after a Vino Vinyasa class. I'm like,
100%.
I connected with all these people. And I gave so much energy, but I like got so much, and it was just like such a joy. And, and then I go home and I'm like, I just need to like sit, and like my friends were like, hey, blah, 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 let's go do something. I'm like, I need like 2 hours to like chill before I can go see another person. But
totally.
I think that's important. And like people, people think self-care, I have to do an hour of yoga, or I have to do, walk your dog, sit for 10 minutes in the quiet in a closet.
Micro practices. I love like this term that's been popping out, micro practices. And it's really funny because you don't realize that those are possible until, for me, I didn't even realize that was possible until I became a parent, because you're like, it's like an all or nothing approach, right? And for me, I'm like, oh no, that's not even an option. Like an hour is not even an option. I literally forget that the scheduling is not even an option. I have to like pinpoint like pockets of the day where I'm like, let me just pop away, like, because it'll work right now. Like, it's not, so in other words, you can't be a perfectionist about this. Like, you cannot. It's just do what feels good, like, flow into it. Like, feel, what do you need right now? Especially if you do have a moment where it's like nothing else is happening,
Yeah. And I think like the pandemic too is like brought up like how much Netflix have we watched and how much, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I didn't watch a lot of TV before, but now because I like don't really have a lot of social plans at night, I've been binging Schitt's Creek.
Oh, so good.
So funny. I'm in the last season though. I have like 3 episodes left. I'm really sad, but I'm like, I don't do this every night because some nights I'm just too exhausted to even do this. But another thing that you can do for self-care that's so easy while you're watching TV is like stretch. Instead of laying on your couch and like sprawling out, get on your floor, get a couple blankets and open up your chest, do pigeon pose. Like there's a whole, I actually wrote a blog on vinovinasayoga.com on a blog post from like early pandemic. I did a blog post on stretches you can do while watching TV. So like, that's another thing. Like I've done that a few times recently, just like instead of laying on the couch, I get on the floor for an episode. And I'm like, wow, I feel so much better, and I didn't even do a yoga practice. I was actually binging TV, but I still was like stretching my body. So that's an easy kind of self-care tip.
I love that, because a little goes a long way. That's the thing. Again, it does not have to be an all or nothing approach ever. It's a little goes a long way, and a little is better than nothing, right? I love that. That's massive. I normally do that. Like that's when my husband walks downstairs in the morning and I'm like literally in pigeon pose on the hardwood floor in front of the coffee maker. And he's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, I'm waiting for the coffee to finish. Like I'm waiting for my coffee and nothing's happening right now. So I'm going to get down on the floor and give myself a good stretch. Like this is exactly what I mean. God, and I love yoga on a hardwood floor too. Like I need that in my life every morning. So yeah, this has been amazing. I'm going to let you go, but I want to give you the opportunity to just like kind of tell our viewers where to find you and like what's going on right now, like what's going on soon or, in the near future.
Yeah. So we are at Vino Vinyasa Yoga on Instagram. We're probably the most active on Instagram. We're on all the platforms, but that's the one that we use the most. And then our website is vinovinasayoga.com. All of our upcoming classes and events are going to be on both of those, and we market them, so you'll see them. Yeah. Don't have anything scheduled yet for 2021, but just stay tuned. We will. I'm actually thinking, because we'd had our last event last night of 2020. So I have like a 2-week break.
Yeah.
And, in true entrepreneur style, instead of like, chilling, I'm like, ooh, I really want to put together a panel. And I actually want the panel to be about what I was talking about, like what's in our wine, and what do we need to look for, some tips that people can take with them, just like Nothing getting too crazy, but I would love to have like a winemaker on, just like a few experts just to kind of like pick their brains about this topic, because I get asked this question all the time and I'm able to like say, okay, don't buy these big box brands and like be careful what you do. But I think if we could get a little more specific and just have like a conversation and get like a few people. So I'm actually going to work on putting that together and hopefully have that be something that we offer in January. Just like we normally offer just Vino Vinyasa classes online, but I think that'd be cool. So
I love that. That's the thing. You're finding these opportunities to have these conversations and develop all this good, like, nurture content. And this is what we have to do. We have to find those opportunities to like keep things going. Because this is hard, but it doesn't have to be the demise. It doesn't, if we decide that this is not going to be, this is going to be an opportunity and not, sad, then we make it happen.
Yeah. I mean, you're a yoga teacher. I have an event company, and it's like we could have both been like, okay, yeah, we're done. Like, that's it. We're just going to chill until this pandemic is over. And it's like, well, that's hard. I mean, and maybe some people have had to because they have kids and they can't multitask. You've been like a Wonder Woman with your kids and doing everything you're doing, but maybe some people had to stop and pause. And I feel bad for those people. But for me, it's like, and you were just like trying to figure it out, move onwards and upwards. And like, even once we
do what we love, like we like, this is something like it's fulfilling. So like you want that to be a part of your life. Like it's a massive part of, for me, it's literally self-care. Like for me to have this business and to have these conversations, like it's part of my self-care. So like because it makes me happy. Anything that makes me happy. So we have
whatever makes you happy, right? So yeah, I hope that we can keep doing our Zoom classes even when everyone's vaccinated and COVID is a memory in the past. Hopefully that will happen one day. I want to keep doing the Zoom. I think it's been a cool thing for our business, and I think like people are now open to this kind of stuff. And like you said, like they weren't as open before, and now it's the new normal. And, we're going to have our regular classes. We're going to have our Zoom classes because our Zoom classes can have our students from all over,
Exactly. It's like you said, it's actually giving you more reach if, to the point where you're considering yourself a global company, which is like amazing. It's like, find those opportunities, like they're there. Oh, and we can go on about how to get to that headspace, right? But anyway, oh my God, this has been so great. Thank you again for joining me. Oh my God, cheers. Happy holidays, girlfriend. Like,
happy holidays, everyone.
Everything.
Yes.
You look wonderful.
And I hope to see you on an online Vino Vinyasa class soon. And Samantha, I hope you can teach do some events together at some point in 2021.
I love it. I'm totally with you, like 100%. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much again.
Thanks. Bye, everyone.
Cheers.